in 1982, when LKA bought the Golden Wonder, we took the Ute along with it because the thinking at the time was any ore from the Golden Wonder had to be milled at the Ute and concentrated because we couldn't afford to just ship it. Like most mining projects. And what we found after we were milling at the Ute for a while, and when we did a pilot program in about 1985 or 86, was that the Golden Wonder ore had such tightly locked in fine gold that we were throwing away in the tailings about 1/3 of an ounce of gold per ton. Now that's enough to make a rich mining project anywhere. And we sent samples away as far as Sweden and all kinds of labs around the world trying to figure out a way to get better recovery. Well, that's a flotation mill up there. Contrary to popular belief, there's no cyanide up there. There never was. I think the most hazardous reagent we used was pine oil, literally pine oil. So we had to figure out a better way to get recovery on Golden Wonder ore, and we realized that the mill wasn't the way to do it unless we had a cyanide circuit. Well, you're right next to the creek. Cyanide, that's not going to work. So the mill sat there, and the property sat there, and it sat there in disrepair. And we knew it was the last intact mining camp left in this state. And you started to see the buildings fall down. And understanding the history of the Ute and how Lake City came to be to support the miners up at the Ute, Stan and I got together. We'd been talking a little bit about it. We got together one day and I said, LKA has limited resources, and what we have to devote to the exploration of the Golden Wonder. That's what our shareholders expect of us. But we've got this legacy property sitting here, this wonderful icon of the mining era past and Lake City's past, and all these buildings are dropping like flies. Especially as Grant pointed out to me, he said, after the one building next to the road collapsed, he says, what are we going to do? Well, Stan and I got together one night and we sat and had dinner, and I said, if the county could figure out a way to get the feds and the state involved in some of these conservancy groups, LKA would donate the property if we could assure ourselves that we're going to restore these buildings, because that is a tremendous tourist point of tourism or point of interest for tourists. If you had I've heard it said around here, if you had a dime for every time a tourist stopped and took a picture of the Ute, you never need to mine it or worry about making money any other way. So that conversation kind of sprouted, and we started exploring possibilities. Stan more than I started talking to people at DRMS and others, and looking for ways to bring that to fruition. And I am delighted to say, at this point, now that the deed has passed to the county, that I have never seen or heard of a public entity like the county bring in some kind of a legacy property like this with all of the state and federal agencies cooperating. We didn't have anybody pointing fingers and saying, hey, okay, that was your property, we're going to charge $1 million to clean it up. And they just said, we've got a certain amount of resources, we've got a plan. Everybody circulated the plan, they agreed to the plan at every step of the way, and they pulled together what I thought, and what I still think, is the model for which the private sector and the public sector need to use, especially in these states and these old mining properties. Instead of spending money fighting one another and giving it to the lawyers, tremendous things can get done when there's cooperation. And on both sides don't dig in their heels and say, well, it's not my responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility anymore. So that's really all I've got to say about the Ute. I just can't speak highly enough of Tara Taffy and Mark Rudolph and Alyssa from CDPHE and all the county commissioners, for everybody just pulling together and making this just a wonderful private-public model of the way we should be cooperating to get this stuff cleaned up and dealt with in a way that benefits the communities going forward. Do I take any questions or just turn it over to...